Hello students, the upcoming lesson is going to be about the biological mechanism of cell reproduction, where a cell is giving rise to a new cell. That means how a new cell is being formed from a pre-existing cell. So we are basically dealing with the reproduction of cell, because reproduction is the process in which a pre-existing organism is giving rise to another organism. Now when we are dealing with a cell, that means a cell would give rise to a new cell. So let's see how does it happen. There are a few questions that might come in your mind when we deal with cell reproduction, that how are new cells formed, that we are going to deal with in the cell cycle. What is cell cycle and what is cell division under this cell cycle? So let us see that if this is a cell, pre-existing cell supposedly, don't get into how this cell originated. It is like the question whether the egg came first or the chicken came first. So if this is the pre-existing cell, after a certain time it is going to give rise to two similar cells. Alright, so this process basically is known as cell reproduction. Similar cells, as is this cell, a similar cell would be formed and there would be two cells. So this process is cell reproduction. It occurs under cell cycle. That means the various processes, biological processes which are occurring inside the cell would form the cell cycle, and in the cell cycle when the cell would divide into two, that would be known as cell division. So first of all, you need to understand the organelles which are involved in cell division. Over here, now I am going to use the term cell division for the process of reproduction. So please see, supposedly I am taking a cell at 7 in the morning. The cell has a lifespan of 12 hours. That means it has to divide into two cells after 12 hours. This is the lifespan of the cell. This cell was single entity in the beginning of its lifespan. It has to undergo certain changes and divide into two cells after 12 hours. This is the lifespan of the cell, and this particular passage or the activities that the cell is going to undergo is known as cell cycle. Alright, in this cell cycle the cell would grow in size, it would further divide into similar cells. So the cell cycle, when it is growing, that phase would be termed as interphase of the cell. First thing that you need to remember is the interphase is the phase when the cell would grow in size. It has to grow in size so that it can give its material to the two cells which are going to be formed. These cells are termed as daughter cells. It has nothing to do with the gender. It is a basic notion that we put it as daughter cell. This is the parent cell. The two newly formed cells are going to be called as daughter cells. The entire process which the cell would undergo would be cell cycle. The process in which the cell would increase its size and form certain things inside it so that it can equally pass those things into these daughter cells would be taking place in interphase. And when the division has to take place, that means the material that has been formed during this interphase period is to be separated equally into two newly formed cells. That phase is known as the M phase. So you get to know that the cell cycle consists of interphase and the M phase. Interphase is the time when the cell is going to increase in size, double its size, so that all the things inside it are equally divided into the daughter cells. So there are four terms that are to be remembered in the one go, that cell cycle, how it takes place. This entire process is basically cell's mechanism of reproducing. That is, it has to give rise to two cells. Now we might have a doubt in our mind that what is the need of doing cell division? The only need that we have cell division occurring around us, that we start as a single celled organism. Then there is a process of growth that takes place. Then there is a process also which is the maintaining of ploidy. All that occurs because cell undergoes the process of cell reproduction under the headings of cell cycle. Now, what is important in understanding cell division cycle is the cell division. How the cell divides, how it gets prepared for that division, that is the main part of study of cell cycle. Let us see how this cell cycle is going to take place. As I told you, there is going to be an interphase and an M phase. So firstly I put that 7 AM to 7 PM, the 12 hour. Now I am going to put it in the form of a cycle. Please pay attention that when I'm talking about a cycle, that means this keeps on going in a cyclic manner. Supposedly a cell starts from here, the parent cell is over here, so it would again become a parent cell. The newly formed cells would get again into that cycle. So it is a cyclic process, hence the name cell cycle. Supposedly this is the cell which now you are going to consider. This is 7 a.m. and you are ticking the clock like this, and you come back over here after 12 hours. What you're going to get is, first of all, you are going to get 95% of the cell cycle is going to be interphase. That means 95% of the lifespan of a cell when it gives rise to daughter cells is spent in preparing for the M phase, which is hardly 5% of the cell cycle, but the activity which takes place over here is much more as compared to interphase. We cannot have the comparison, but clearly seen under microscope is the M phase. The various stages of M phase are clearly seen under the microscope. Interphase is a conceptual thing that we get to understand, that first of all the cell would enter a phase known as G1 phase. G stands for growth. Alright, G1 phase in which the cell would stay. Now this G1 phase ends after some time. After some time what would happen? When this G1 completes, the cell would enter the S phase. Now S again would signify something, as does G. So S stands for synthesis. Now what does cell have which needs to be synthesized? Only thing that has to be synthesized is DNA. Please cram it that the DNA has to be synthesized. That means the original cell is not having the DNA. No, it is having the DNA, but it needs to create a copy of the DNA, same DNA, so that the cell, the daughter cells which are going to have, they also have the similar DNA which is synthesized during this S phase. When the S phase completes, the cell enters into G2 phase, which is further the preparation of cell to get into the M phase. Alright, this is a very gross explanation that the cell is going to have 3 phases in the interphase. You need to remember that the first phase is G1 phase, when the cell is basically preparing for the synthesis phase. Alright, when the synthesis phase takes place, then after that there is G2 phase, when the cell is preparing for M phase. So most important phases happen to be the S phase and the M phase. Now what happens in S phase is the synthesis of DNA. That means I am talking about DNA replication. In case you are not aware of what is DNA replication, have a simple understanding that DNA replication is the preparation or the completion of creating a blueprint for cells' activities. Cells work according to whatever is coded in their DNA. So when the daughter cells are going to be formed, the DNA is going to be present in both the cells. Now if I am talking about the cells, consider this as a cell, it is having DNA inside it. This DNA has to be copied equally, this much DNA, so that the daughter cells which are formed, both of them are going to have similar DNA complement, so that they become daughter cells, identical cells. Something new is not being formed over here. Now this DNA replication is a very complex process. It involves a lot of enzymatic machinery, and the preparation for getting those enzymes, the organelles which are required in DNA replication, they would be prepared and synthesized during the G1 phase. So this is a vital phase, as we can see. DNA replication, when it gets completed, then what happens? The cell enters the G2 phase. All the proteins and other rest things which were synthesized during G1 will be used during S phase. The DNA that has been formed in S phase would further go conditioning in the G2 phase. Remember it that S phase leads to G2 phase, where the conditioning of all the processes which have taken place and the remaining processes which were not completed, which are required for cell replication, take place in the G2 phase. When this interphase is completed, taking the 95% of lifespan of a cell, remaining 5% of the lifespan would be spent in giving away the genetic material to both the daughter cells. So what is important in cell reproduction? is basically the M phase, which is the phase of a lot of activity. Don't confuse yourself, because time and again I'm saying it is the interphase which happens to be the most active phase, but what we can see mostly is the M phase. So we are going to take M phase in detail. For that you need to see the next lecture.